All right, we are live. Hopefully, everyone comes in at a reasonable time here, but we're going to jump right into it. So, today, or first, welcome back. But today, we're going to be doing a interesting case study I've been curious about regarding, if there's a potential play between PSA 9s and CGC 10s. Now, there's a few reasons why I want to look into that play potentially. We'll go over them in a few minutes. Oh shit! Sorry, I have my stream on my phone as well, just to make sure it's working. But we'll go into it. Part of it is that they just have faster turnaround times. The other part of it is that there's potentially a flip opportunity here as far as CGC 10s selling for more than PSA 9s. That's pretty universally understood. But with PSA's grading standards getting a little bit stricter and then the turnaround times being really aggressive right now, I am trying to find some alternatives because I recently got back a sub of like 15 cards from PSA and like 10 of them were PSA 9s, which was pretty tough. And I spent a long time going through them. So trying to find some other opportunities here. And yeah, we will dive into the stream now. Before we get too far into it, I did want to just show everyone an interesting statistic, which is not Pokemon related. It is stock market, or not stock market, but like macro related. So today there was a report that margin debt has reached, I believe, the highest level since the 90s. And so for anyone that doesn't know, that's essentially people leveraging, going on margin to try and make potential plays with stock picks, usually. And I mean, this is just the times we're in. People think that they can make more money by going into debt, which in some cases they can, but it's just very risky. I believe it exceeded $1 trillion in margin debt, up 18.5%, I think, in the last 2 months or so. So I just thought that was an interesting statistic. And yeah, before we get into the PSA 9s, hello, Card Vibe. How are you doing? Good evening to you as well. Before we get into the PSA 9 versus CGC 10 case study, I do want to also take a look at the recap for the recent reveals from Pokemon Presents. The main ones we care about really are the Mega Dragonite reveal, which I have in the background here, as well as the trading card game reveals. So there's a lot of controversy around the Mega Dragonite that got announced for the first time. Primarily, it's for the Z to A game, but also we might see a Mega Dragonite SIR at some point. Let me know down below how you feel about it. I know a lot of people did not like it. I was honestly not. I was not a fan of it at first, but the more I've been seeing it, the more it's kind of grown on me. And yeah, I sort of made a post today where it's like, as soon as we get a Mega Dragonite SIR, and I've had this discussion with people, I think a lot of folks are going to not care anymore. But yeah, the megas, the new megas on their trailer, which I know everyone has seen at this point. But just to recap for anyone who did not see, maybe I won't show this if my computer is going to be this slow. Yeah, it's going to be bugging. But we got a Bulbasaur, which was the box topper for the new Mega Evolution 1 booster box. We got an Ivysaur connecting art illustration rare, as well as a Mega Venusaur SIR. We then got the Mega Lucario, Mega Gardevoir, Mega Kangaskhan. So lots of cool cards got announced. It's great to see that the Lucario was confirmed, because that was one where I was like, man, if we have another fake reveal. But this one's pretty sick. I didn't even notice that there's actually a Venusaur in the artwork here down below. I don't know if you can see that. but sort of in between the Ivysaur and the Mega Venusaur, there is another Mega Venusaur down there. So that's all I'll say about that. And without further ado, let's dive into the case study. Are we booming? Yeah, we are booming. We're booming. Okay. Let's get rid of this. So, if you guys will be patient with me, I'll try to explain my thought process through this as well as the data. So, essentially, I wanted to look at this with the alt arts specifically because I do think that, well, first of all, I think that there's a lot of plays to be had with the alt arts. Second of all, I I got a sub back recently from PSA with a lot of alt arts in it, and they did not do that great. I got a lot of 9s. I got 2 Charizard V alt PSA 9s. I got a Glaceon VMAX PSA 9, Espeon VMAX PSA 9. And these are the ones that, like, some of these I had multiples of, and these are the ones that I sent thinking they were the best. I sent in some of these hidden, or 2 of these Zoroark Hidden Fates promos. Both got 9s. I did get a few 10s. I got, I think, 6 10s. So, wasn't the end of the world. This was definitely the best 10 we got was the Umbreon V. We got 1 Leafeon V, 1 Darkrai V-Star, a Serena, Celebi V, like this card a lot, and a Charizard VMAX Rainbow. And then the last, another PSA 9 that I got that I put separate to the pile is the Giratina V-Star, which I'm going to use to explain because I also have a CGC 10 as well. But yeah, without further ado, I want to go over the numbers here. So essentially, yeah, I wanted to do this research because I got shafted by PSA, but also I don't want to resubmit because the current turnaround times for PSA are pretty bad. So I'm kind of looking for alternatives. And really, if you look at this data, let me hide this column. The raw versus PSA 9 value in a lot of cases, the raw is still cheaper than the raw is still more expensive than a PSA 9. So after grading fees, if you spend $20 right now to grade some of these, you're down like 20, 30 bucks at least. So some examples of that you could see is like the Leafeon VMAX, the Blaziken VMAX, Sylveon VMAX, a lot of these. Lugia is one that's an exception. Espeon. Again, these are kind of loose numbers that I just pulled from alt. But moral of the story is I really don't want to sell these as PSA 9s. I don't want to take that L. So I'm trying to find an alternative. I've never personally submitted with CGC before, and now I'm heavily considering it because the upside for the CGC 10s seems to be there, and also the turnaround times are there. I want to go over the dollar difference between them first, and then we will go over, I also have some columns that I'll unhide and show after, which shows the grading percentages. So I went through and manually entered every single grading percentage for these. So stick around for a little bit and we'll go over that. But all in all, if you just want the TLDR, the difference between a PSA 9 and a CGC 10 from the 21 cards I selected, kind of like the bigger alt art cards, is about an average of $133 increase between a PSA 9 to a CGC 10. So a CGC 10 being about an average of $133 increase between these 21 cards, or a 44% increase in value. Now, there's a lot of caveats to this. CGC is still by far way less liquid than PSA, so you have to think about that. The grading standards are a little bit different too. And so I'm doing this probably as more of an experiment, but I'm curious to see where it goes. So just, I guess, surface level here, I do understand why a lot of bigger content creators and streamers have gone the CGC 10 route, at least during the bull market, especially. It makes a lot of sense to me. I would say that the obvious risks, just face value here with CGC 10s, is that, you know, you can potentially damage if you're cracking from PSA 9 to CGC 10, you can potentially damage your card cracking PSA 9s. I know their labels are or their slabs are a little bit different now. I haven't tried to crack a newer cert one yet, but I probably will soon. So that's one risk. The other risk is, yeah, like I said, CGC's grading standards versus your subjective viewpoint. So just because you think CGC grades easier, which it probably does in some cases, I think it goes both ways. But either way, uh, that ultimately comes down to like experience level and if you've submitted with them before and how that went. And then the last thing is obviously liquidity that we brought up. Now, the opposite of that, the upside, is that we're currently having faster turnaround times. It's a cheaper fee. So it's a 17. I put an assumption here. For bulk at CGC, it's 50 days, $14 a card, or economy, which seems to be the better one, 25 days, so half the time for $3 more, $17. So I subtracted the $17 grading fee, and that gave us an average increase of $116 per card with these 21 cards. And then, so faster turnaround times during a bull market right now is a good thing. And then the other upside I would say is, CGC 10s, both the regulars and pristines go for, yes, Card Vibe brought it up. Pristines go for more than PSA 9s, and obviously, but they also go for more than PSA 10s. So you could have a chance of getting a pristine. We'll talk about that in a minute or in a couple minutes. But I just want to look at this face value. I've highlighted a few things. We'll go over those. But I pulled the Umbreon VMAX from Evolving Skies, Rayquaza VMAX from Evolving Skies, Gengar VMAX from Fusion Strike, Giratina V, Leafeon VMAX, Evolving. So all of these are kind of like the top chases from the main sets that get talked about, mostly Evolving, Chilling, Fusion, Silver Tempest, Brilliant Stars. And I just wanted to go through that. So an example here, the most obvious one we could talk about is the Moonbreon. So a raw Moonbreon goes for $13.76 on TCG Player. PSA 10 average about $2,700. PSA 9 is very close to the raw price. CGC 10, however, you get about a 30% increase. And so when I actually bust out the percentages, it's actually pretty interesting. I'm going to try to hide some of these so it's not super overwhelming for you. But let's see. Actually, before I do this, let's just go down the list first, and then we'll look at the percentages. But so Moonbreon is about a $400 increase. This is for a regular CGC 10, this black label one. Sorry, not black label, but like black and white. It's not the golden pristine. You get a $400 increase approximately. For Rayquaza, it's about $175. For Gengar and Giratina, it's more, $370 to $300. Higher percentage, I mean. I highlighted those in green. The one downside to them is they are harder to grade in general. Leafeon VMAX, this one's kind of an outlier. For whatever reason, Leafeon VMAX always is really struggling between the raw price. I don't know why the raw price is so expensive for this one, but the return on like a PSA 10 is so low. You see it with some of the evolutions, but with Leafeon especially, it's pretty interesting. Blaziken, we get $150 or 46%. Sylveon, $100, 38%. Lugia V, $60, 20%. The big ones, I highlighted any of them that you're getting a return of more than 50%. That doesn't take into account how difficult they are to grade, but it's just showing that CGC 10s can be quite profitable on some of these cards. I highlighted Dragonite as well, in addition to Gengar and Giratina, because right now there seems to be some sort of discrepancy, in my opinion, between the raw and PSA 9 price of Dragonite and the PSA 10. So there's like a 3x multiple on Dragonite, Gengar, and Giratina between the raw and PSA 10s. So you go from about 600 to 1500, 500 to 1550, 237 to 700. These are like almost, if not more than 300% gains. And Dragonite also has a good CGC 10 premium. Umbreon is an interesting one as well. It has the highest CGC 10 premium, but I know that it is the hardest to grade. So let me pull up those stats real quick. Let's pull these up. So, in general, most cards that you submit to PSA, or at least most cards from this list, will receive a PSA 10. 59%, let's just call it 60% on average, are getting PSA 10s. This is me entering in every single pop report. So for Charizard, 13,298 PSA 10s out of 25,000 total graded is 53% PSA 10s. I did the same thing with PSA 9s just to give us a ballpark. So most of these cards that you're sending in are getting PSA 10s. About 31%, 30% to 31% are getting PSA 9. So combined together, 90% of cards, I think, if my math is right, I could be off here, but I think if I did my math right, 90% of cards are getting PSA 9s or 10s from this list of alt arts. Whereas with CGC, you're getting about 85, 86%. So it's close, not quite the same between a CGC 9 and a CGC 10 to a CGC pristine-ish or perfect, what used to be a perfect. But with these premiums, I do think it's interesting to look at because to me, I don't know. There's a lot of people who say CGC is easier than PSA to grade with. PSA has always been pretty easy. They've recently gotten a bit stricter with not only their centering, but it looks like also they have just raised the bar for what a PSA 10 is in some cases. I know people who are having a lot of success still. But in the current market, again, me personally, I'm trying to look for other opportunities. But I would not take this percentage directly at face value. Like originally when I was plotting this, the CGC 10s, I wasn't including the pristines because essentially you could just get a regular CGC 10, but you also have, in a lot of cases, it's like almost, if you get a 10, you have almost a 20% chance at getting a pristine, which would be more expensive than a PSA 10. And so this 5% difference in 9 to 10-ish rate, it's a bit larger from PSA 10 to CGC 10, which is a risk. 59, let's just call it 60% versus 45%. There's about a 15% difference between a PSA 10 and a CGC 10. But that the caveat there is I take that almost like if you're sending in raw cards. If I'm cracking these PSA 9s, do I think that they're able to get a CGC 10? That is a different story because when I look at, I looked in pretty decent detail on these two Giratinas, PSA versus CGC, and I quite literally could not see a single flaw on the back corners on either of them. The front, I would say the CGC 10 is slightly better centering than the PSA 9. So I could understand maybe why PSA says that's a 60-40 instead of their new 55-45 rule. But overall, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, bro, how many cards could I potentially do this with? Now, I do think you need to look at your cards in detail. Just because it's a PSA 9, that does not mean it is automatically going to get a CGC 10. And for someone who does not have personal experience with CGC grading, I can't just assume that because PSA is being more harsh that I will get an automatic PSA 10. When you pull up CGC's pop report, it looks like this. So I just highlighted the Umbreon VMAX alt art. So you'll see they have columns for the perfect 10, pristine 10, which I think these are now the same thing. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. The perfect 10 might be the old blue and gold label. I believe there's just gem mint and pristine now. But either way, I add these both together to get our pristine quantity and percentage. And then this is the total graded over here. So 27, 29 graded. You have about 400-ish pristines, 1,157 gem mints. And then you have 93 9.5s, and 746 9s. So it's obviously not okay. Perfect 10s are out of print. Thank you for clarifying. So, but just because they're out of print, I would still equate what they have in the pop report. Like these would, I would hope, would get pristine 10s or be able to be crossed to pristine 10. Or I am making this like I'm making this video or this case study, I guess, under the assumption that they would get pristines. If they wouldn't, it's a small percentage. It wouldn't really affect the bottom line numbers too much, but you do have a decent 20, 30, I think in this case probably 30% chance, or almost 30% chance of getting a 9 to 9.5. So I just want to put that out there. But like if we go to alt real quick and we look up Umbreon VMAX alt art, let's find a CGC 10 real quick. Okay. So CGC 10s, again, recently, I think I put it at, what did I put it at? 1800 average? Yeah, I put it at 1800. I think I really just ballparked it because I saw 1700, 1900, 1899. And then the 9.5s, the problem with the 9.5s and the 9s is there's not as consistent of data. But here you can see, like on July 4th, a 9 still sold for $14.25. So my problem is if a PSA 9, I unhide these again. If a PSA 9 and a CGC 9 are selling for the same price, but the CGC 10 is like if I couldn't get a 10 PSA 10 theoretically, but I could get a CGC 10 and it's a couple $100 extra, I don't see why I wouldn't do that. Granted, like this is not considering the fact that you could, in theory, crack a PSA 9, resubmit it to PSA, and get a PSA 10. In most cases, with the grading here, you'll notice that a lot of the PSA 10s, or the highest percentage PSA 10 returns, for the most part, are VMAXs. If I highlight all these ones that are like 70%, they're all VMAXs. Glaceon, Sylveon, Leafeon, Rayquaza, they actually also happen to be Evolving Skies VMAXs. So Evolving Skies has had pretty good gem rates. So maybe on certain cards like that, you still want to resubmit to PSA to give it a shot. But like a lot of these Vs and some of these lesser VMAXs, it could be worth it to give CGC a shot. And I'm by no means trying to shill CGC. Again, I have no stake in the game. I don't have a single CGC slab that I've submitted myself. Any CGC slabs I have, which I think I have 2 or 3 of them, are from trades or ones I've picked up at shows. But I do think an interesting point is very similar to PSA. Getting a CGC 10 or a pristine, you actually still have a higher likelihood of getting a 10 or a pristine than you do a 9 or a 9.5. So that's a good thing. So if we look at like the Umbreon, for example, 58% versus 31%, you have 20-ish percent, or what is it, 25% chance to still get, or 25% of the cards submitted are getting CGC 10s or pristines over 9s to 9.5s. That case is the same for a lot of these. However, there are some that are the opposite. So Giratina, for example, 44% PSA 10 rate, 41%, let's say, PSA 9 rate. However, CGC 10 and CGC pristines, 29% versus 47% on 9s to 9.5s. So if you are going to do this, I would caution you to not only look at the returns, but also compare the gem rates if you have the time or effort or energy to do it, especially on the higher value cards. Because now, granted, you're only spending a $17 grading fee, but I would rather keep a PSA 9 of a Giratina V alt art than to cross to a CGC 9. Do you see what I'm saying? The liquidity is still an important factor there. So even if they sell for the same price, if they both sell for $500, same price as raw, let's say, I would rather have a PSA 9 over a CGC 9. I know more collectors and more people at these conventions are seeking out PSA 9s, especially for ultra modern cards, over CGC 9s. But CGC 10s, with a lot of these YouTubers, streamers, and then there's just been more CGC collectors in general, I think, for a multitude of reasons. I think they're doing a good job, like getting market share and just getting streamers, bulk streamers, and also people just who want to submit their cards to get them encapsulated and don't want crazy upcharges and don't want to wait for 3 months. They're getting that audience right now. But let's see other ones. I'm trying to find another example that's similar to the Giratina. Dragonite V is close, much closer. Like the PSA 10s, 54% versus 36% PSA 9s, compared to 45% CGC 10s and 43% CGC 9 and 9.5. So those are pretty close. So there are ones where you might want to be a little more risk on. Umbreon V just seems to be one of the hardest cards to grade. It has the lowest PSA 10 rate of the cards I listed here, which is awesome because the one big PSA 10 I got was that card. I need to turn off my camera just so I can show you guys this more. But yeah, that's the card I'm talking about, the Umbreon V Alt from Evolving Skies. 48% PSA 10, 39% PSA 9, 36% CGC 10, 48% CGC 9 to 9.5. So you are more likely to get a CGC 9 to 9.5 than you are a 10 in this case. Granted, again, if you look at, like, if you had a PSA 9 of this card, let's say, and it's the cleanest card you've ever seen and you think PSA should have given it a 10, maybe it's still worth it to send to CGC. Just because it's more difficult to get a 10 with this card particularly does not mean you can't. All I'm saying is if I were to crack 9s to go to 10s, I would want it, like, I would really want to be sure that it should have gotten a better grade. There can be flaws, I believe, but you don't want like excessive issues. With PSA, a card with a white dot on the back is a no-go. Is CGC more lenient with those dots if there's one on the corner? In my experience, it can range. Again, I don't have experience with CGC, so I just want to put that out there. With PSA, I've had cards with dots, with a dot on the corner, get a 10, and I've had cards without dots, get a 9, that look more or less the same. It's usually, it sounds like from people I've talked to, CGC 10s can have like 1 to 2 white dots on the back. And the centering, I believe, is a little bit similar to PSA's old centering, 60-40. I think. Don't quote me on that. Verify. Trust. Don't trust but verify. But yeah, I'm at a point where like I'm willing to take the risk because some of these I spent like 3 to 4 hours combing through, and some of them, again, I had multiple copies and I sent my best copies, and like I was kind of shocked at how many 9s I got. However, I would like to caveat that again by saying there's so much nuance to this stuff, guys. It's not as straightforward as I thought. It's also not maybe as like analytical and as objective as I want it to be. It could also be grader dependent. I've had subs where you just have one grader that gives everything a 10, and you've had other subs where they give everything a 9 or 9s and 8s, which can be really brutal. But I do think having a bit of data to support, your reasoning for things can be helpful. Again, I said that the VMAXs, especially the Evolving Skies VMAXs, you're getting a lot of them in the high 70s, 60s, 70s. But what was interesting is that when you start to look at the 9s, or the Vs, you have Umbreon V, Charizard V, Rayquaza V, Tyranitar V, Espeon V, Galarian Moltres V. It's pretty high, actually. Sylveon V, Glaceon V, Leafeon V. Even the Evolving Skies Vs are actually getting lower gem rates than the VMAXs. I don't know if that's the texturing or printing issue, what actually caused that to be. But this includes PSA's real numbers. Look at the equation up here. 5383 out of 10,000, 56 out of 10,500, 5,000 out of 10,000, 5,100 out of, or 5,200 out of 9,100. So, and then I have the nines as well. But and then you see the same thing with the CGC ones as well. So like CGC pristines for the Umbreon and the Rayquaza, for example, were mid to high 50s for their 10s to pristines, and their low 30s for their 9s to 9.5s. But when we go down to the Vs, there's actually a higher percentage of 9s to 9.5s for all of these V, like the Espeon, Sylveon, Glaceon, and Leafeon, for example, here. So just keep that in mind. It is not as straightforward as I wanted it to be, but I am willing to take the risk in some cases and see what happens. But yeah, that's kind of my deep dive in a nutshell. Let me know if you have any questions. I really don't think there's too much to go off of here. I know I took like as many data points as I could to make a claim here, but I think it also just comes down to, one, your personal preference, two, how good of a grader you are in your experience level. I'm feeling like I'm not being a good grader because I got 2/3 of my sub being PSA 9s. Granted, a lot of them were Vs, but still, I had an Espeon VMAX, I had a Glaceon VMAX that I felt were 10s, and they got 9s. So I'm really quite interested to see if I can get CGC 10s, because those two cards, for example, they're pretty high, like 60 to 70% PSA 10 rate, and like a 50 to 60% CGC 10 to pristine ish. I would have thought that I would have gotten a PSA 10 on them. So I will probably resubmit them. I'll let you guys know how it goes, because can't complete the experiment without getting the actual results back. So if the actual turnaround time is like it says, 25 days, that's less than a month. That's pretty good. 25 days is pretty good for $17 a card. A little bit cheaper than PSA and faster turnaround times. The one other thing I wanted to mention that I wrote in the assumptions here is that with PSA getting more difficult to grade with, or at least it feels like it is, I did want to point out that it's possible that many of the previously graded PSA 10s were graded easier than they would have been now, or vice. The flip side of that would be like, it's possible that if you sent some of the PSA 10s they graded a couple years ago, now they could have gotten PSA 9s today. There is 100% a difference in my experience with PSA currently as far as gem rates. So let me know if any of you guys have been struggling getting gem mint 10s. I have a few friends who have been sending Sun and Moon tag teams, alt arts. They're getting nonstop 10s at PSA still. So I don't know if this is a me problem, but I probably could be doing a bit better on it in general. But yeah, let me know what you think. We will go into the next segment, which is actually an interesting one. I want to get everyone's take on. It is the supposedly confirmed Paldea Evolved reprint. So PokeNotify posted today. PokeNotify can confirm that a reprint of Paldea Evolved has taken place, and our sources at several big box retailers have received inventory currently being stored in their warehouse. We expect restock for various products to take place in the upcoming weeks. So I don't know if people have heard of this, but this is quite interesting. I don't think many people expected a Paldea Evolved reprint, just because of I don't know, the need to reprint a lot of newer sets, it feels like. However, Paldea Evolved is the most expensive Scarlet and Violet era booster box currently. So I understand it from that perspective, but it's SVO2. It just felt kind of random in terms of like sets needing to be printed more. but it is a $356 box still. So the one thing that I don't know yet, I know this includes all the products here. I don't know if it's a booster box reprint. If it's not a booster box reprint, this really is just like noise, market noise. This is not relevant news to me personally if this is not does not include booster boxes. It also says major retailers, so that makes me think that it would probably be things like bundles and ETBs over booster boxes because they don't carry booster boxes at retail. Oh shoot. LOL sleeve booster is my guess. I found some at Dollar General a couple weeks ago. If it's sleeved packs, booster bundles, ETBs even, I'm personally not worried about booster box price action. And the way I've been thinking about things now is like my position in Paldea, I have one sealed case of booster boxes. I think I have 6 or 7 loose. Pretty much all those loose ones I got around or below 200. And then I got one box the last weekend at 320. So if it really gets down to the price where I would probably buy a bunch more below 250 on boxes, I will probably buy at least another case. I just don't see it getting to that. Yeah, that's a good point. So for those that don't know, PokeNotify does sell a private Discord or whatever for these restock groups. So they do have like a large bias in making this post about reprints because they want more people to sign up for their membership to get this sort of drop. I mean, they literally even disclose it right here that, they're offering their trial. So no hate to them for doing that. They got a business to run. Do your thing. But yeah, that's important to disclose as well. Let's see what else. Okay, other thing I wanted to touch on real quick. I don't think it's major news, but PokeBeach posted them. We got two new collection boxes. So we got a Salamence and Reshiram together and a couple other sets. Let's see. I haven't looked at it too closely. Surging Sparks, it looks like. So we have. Let's see if I can zoom. That's not gonna work. Wait, what just happened? Sorry. Oh, it has Destined too. So it looks like it has 5. I don't know what's behind the jumbo. Maybe 5 or 6 Destined, and then the rest Surging. That's pretty good. I wonder if there's Journey Together behind this. I don't know why they would have Journey Together stamp promos, but not packs of Journey. I like the Salamence though. Salamence looks cool. I know that's like a regular EX, but with the stamp, it looks cool. But Destined and Surging is pretty good. Again, the problem here is that they are not reprinting booster boxes, it seems. I know they've reprinted Surging multiple times. 10 booster packs. So yeah, it looks like 5 of each. I know they've reprinted Surging multiple times with booster boxes, but it's not enough. They can't just put stuff in collection boxes and expect the pack price will probably fluctuate a bit, but I'm not concerned. As someone who primarily holds booster boxes, I'm not concerned if this is a reprint. Again, for Surging too, my cost basis is super low. Destined is still the one where I'm waiting for a better entry. I have one case of Destined I paid $1,400 for, which is like $210 or $220 a box. Very expensive. I don't want to go too deep into Destined if it's going to get reprinted soon, but the set has been just going up and up, and they haven't been reprinting it. The other collection box that got announced is a Mega Latios box for the Mega Evolution set. So this one's a little bit more hype in the sense that we don't have this set or these cards yet. Also, who doesn't love Latios? This also is super bullish on the Latios SIR that got leaked a couple weeks ago, but has not been confirmed yet. The Lucario that got leaked in that same post. Again, I'm going to use PokeNotify because I know they've posted it. Let me see if I can grab it real quick. They post just about every leak. Here it is. So this Megalodios, I'm not going to say I'm certain on, but I am more confident in the fact that this would be a real SIR, just based on the fact that the Lucario ended up being real and that we have confirmed Megalodios. I know this one was already confirmed, but just getting like a collection box for it as well, I feel like is a better sign that leaning towards the likelihood of us getting a Megalodios SIR, which would be great. The other thing I wanted to touch on was we're just going through random news right now, guys. So if there's anything you want me to cover, I will touch on it. Otherwise, this will be a pretty short and sweet stream. But the Prismatic Evolutions Sam's Club drop. So I know a lot of people had seen this. Let's see. They have it on their website right now. It's sold out, obviously. Or like you can pick it up maybe. There's a Pokeball version and a Moonball version. I'm not sure what packs come inside the Pokeballs. Temporal, Stellar, and Surging. I don't know if that's the same for every single one. Let's see if the Moonball. No, there's no way. Okay, so the Moonball, yeah, these are probably just stock photos with the Pokeball here. That's those are Sun and Moon packs. That's not going to be in there. But if it was, we would have some bigger issues. But let's see. I'm trying to see. Okay, so some people are able to grab them now. You get that Pokeball in there and an ETB of Prismatic. I wanted to bring this up because I wanted to price check Prismatic Evolutions ETBs, see if we have any downward pressure from the reprints. If we don't, I would honestly be more surprised. Where the hell is TCG Player? And I don't know. If anyone knows any more about like if these Sam's Clubs, like if all of them have hit yet. I think it looks like the lowest listed is 107. So if anything, the price has actually gone up since this has dropped. I believe it got as low as like 105. Oh, 101 a couple days ago, but it's at 103. So again, I bought a decent amount, not a ton, but a bit of Prismatic, around 100 in ETB. I got like 30 or 40 of them. And yeah, if they drop below, I'll just keep DCing into it. I'm not super concerned about it. Even if they get all the way down to MSRP, which I think is almost impossible with the demand for the set. But if it does, I'll just DCA into it because I really think that this set is still going to hold up very well in the coming years just due to the value of what's inside. It's still so heavily skewed towards this set over others. 151, on the other hand, it's not that heavily skewed. Like the singles inside aren't that expensive. It's just the set is so popular now. I mean, we have the PC ETB and the regular ETB. The PC ETB has gone on an absolute tear recently. 40% in the last 3 months, another 30 of that in the last month. From 520 a month ago up to 670 now. You have confirmed sales over 700 up to 750, so it's even higher than that. Lowest list is 710 plus 15 shipping, 725. I mean, I missed the boat on these, so I have nothing to say about this other than wow. This is more expensive than certain Sun and Moon boxes were a year ago. You could have gotten, I mean, I got like Burning Shadows, Lost Thunder. I'm trying to think what else. Fates Collide. I think I paid like $550 for Fates Collide and Lost Thunder a year ago. And you have this PC ETB for one of the most popular sets, but it's ultra modern and it's more expensive. I couldn't have called it. The ETB, the regular ETB, is also on the move still. It's past about it's close to 270 now, but a month ago was around 240. Confirmed sales in the high 70s now, 270s now, which is pretty insane. So this thing is going to be $300 soon if they don't ever reprint the ETBs. Inept, what's up, dude? I see you in a lot of people's chats that I watch. I see you in Rudy's chat or his comments. I see you in Alex's Nostalgianomics' chat. So you're all over the place. I appreciate you lurking while editing your video. It's good to see you. Yeah, I don't think there's too much else I wanted to touch on because I mean, it doesn't really look like Prismatic was being impacted by the Sam's Club restock reprint. The SIR Charizard wants to break out, I think, in my opinion. I think I was talking about it when it was like 180, 182. It's up about, I mean, I didn't quite catch the low, but it's up about 5%. You still have some in the mid 180s, but it feels like this card is going to go back to 1,000 in a PSA 10, in my opinion. Again, that's just, even if they keep reprinting this, it's only a matter of time. The card and the set is just too nostalgic, too popular. I don't see how it's not going to maintain that long term. Granted, there might be people with hundreds and hundreds of copies of these, but it's really not that easy to grade relative to how many are being submitted. Less than 50% are getting PSA 10s. So you have things like the Umbreon VMAX, which is by far the most desirable modern era card, I would say. Or the most in-demand card, it feels like. But it has like a 70% PSA 10 rate, whereas this Charizard is like, what is it, low 40s or something? So the 10s are still around 700-ish. Again, I don't think it's going to 1,000 anytime soon, but it probably wouldn't take as much as you think. I think probably the biggest sleeper is still the Paldean Fates Mew, I think, unless it's moved again. At the time, it was 300, 303. I think it's like 320 now. Paldean Fates. Just going to click on one of these products so I can get to the Paldean Fates. So the Bubble Mew, oh wow, yeah, it's still going. 349. No, 347. 10% in the last 3 months. Yeah, this thing's running. This thing is running 350. I think it's, yeah, I think there was some PSA 10s that sold for 1,100 or 1,200. Oh, that is not right. I don't know why alt, it doesn't always grab the exact. There we go. That's the right one. Let's see from the pop report. Yeah, you got confirmed sales at 1,300 now. This is wild. So you're still getting a 3x plus return, 4x return actually, if you grade this card a PSA 10. 300% gain. Not much to say about it. This is still a card that's very much gradable. Granted, again, looks like it's less than 50% PSA 10 rate. I'm curious to see how this stuff pans out long term for these Scarlet Violet era cards. A lot of them have more or less the same, similar pop reports as Sword and Shield era, but they are like similar amounts of cards graded for certain top chases, but they are way harder to grade in Scarlet Violet era because of the bad print quality, it feels like. But like I was looking at the the Lugia V, guys, is like, I think it might be the most graded alt art. I didn't realize how many were graded. Now, granted, it's like it's one of the best looking cards. But this card, it has over 30,000 cards graded. It has more PSA 10s, I believe, than the Umbreon. Wait, actually, I might be off. The Umbreon might still have more. But this card has been getting graded a ton. And it has sales reaching $800 now for Lugia V alt art. So, I mean, it feels like the market cannot be stopped. But when I get overconfident like that, that's usually a sign that things are going to take a spin for the worse at some point. So I'm not gonna get too confident on it, but it's pretty insane some of the moves we're seeing. Yeah, 10s are going for high 700s for the Charizard. Is that which one you're talking about? Love supporting the creators out there doing great work. I appreciate it, dude. Yeah, just trying to be, for me, it's more about being consistent right now. I'm just trying to do the 2 streams a week. I need to really get the video schedule upload down for like long form and short form content. But the streams have been going well. I've been enjoying them. It is harder to do the solo streams, I will say. Like, I don't feel like I have as much to talk about. Even the PSA CGC debate I did, that went for like 25, 30 minutes. I thought I could talk for like an hour about it, but really, I just don't have the experience with it yet. But I will let you guys know. I'm gonna resub. I don't know if I'll resub all of them, but I have about 10-ish PSA 9s that just came back that I may try to crack and resubmit to CGC. But yeah, that's kind of all I had. This has been a short stream. We're only at 50 minutes, but let's see if there's anything else. Let's see how Temporal is doing. Again, Temporal is my favorite set probably in the era. Feels like it has the most stacked SIRs for a mainline set, and it has the Ghastly IR, which I think is one of the best IRs as well. The guest you had on the other day was great, and that podcast was well worth watching on upload after. I appreciate that. Yeah, that was Milan or Mushu Collectibles. He is the GOAT. So definitely go follow him. He has a really cool Lugia break. I'll shill Mushu real quick for anyone that did not see. He has a Lugia break card on a giveaway right now. So go enter this giveaway. Go follow Mushu. This is like the main. If you're gonna get a break card, this is the one you want from Fates Collide. Lugia break. Go enter that, and I hope one of you guys wins. But yeah, I really like Temporal again. I'm gonna keep shilling this set just because I think it will have its day. The problem with like cards is that if they aren't like absolutely pumping when things are hot, people think that they're not going to do that well long term. But when I'm looking at this card, I have to have convictions in something that is like my own thought. That's not just like what everyone else is saying. And Temporal to me feels like that set. It feels like the one where I would have been upset if I didn't have exposure to it. It has one of the best set identities, in my opinion, in terms of you have your ancient legendary dogs, Raging Bolt, Walking Wake, Gouging Fire, and then you have the future. I don't even know what they are. Deers, Iron Crown, Iron Leaves, Iron Boulder. You have a Ghastly IR. You have a Morty's Conviction SIR. You have a Gengar EX full art that is nearing. It's passing some of the SIRs and IRs. $22 for a Gengar EX full art. So just keep that in mind. Gengar, I'm telling you, do not sleep on Gengar across all sets. The difficulty with the Morty's Conviction is it's a trainer card. I know Gengar is like the main focus of this artwork, but being a trainer does sort of nerf it a little bit. The Ghastly card is insane, though. You have Gengar, Haunter, and Ghastly all in the same card. That's nuts. I think this card got as high as like 400 to 500 at one point. Let me see what it's at now. Ghastly 177. I want to guess it's at like maybe mid to low twos up to $300. I'm going to guess. Yeah. So honestly, I mean, it's not the best pickup as far as like there probably are better opportunities, but for me not having a PSA 10 anymore, and the last PSA 10 I had, I traded for when it was at like $300 and sold it for that. Still pretty attractive. Once it gets to like 200, if it pushes down to 200, I definitely will be looking at that. Y'all were talking about break cards, and I was like, I finally feel seen. Yeah, break cards are an interesting one. There's definitely some cool ones. There's just like some that are so in the weeds and niche Pokemon that like don't get talked about. but I'm sure they'll have their day. It kind of happens with every subset of Pokemon cards that people start to lose or like aren't interested in at first. Someday someone makes a play on them. Let's see what else. What else? What else? What else? I think evolving is like almost cracking 2,500 as well. I saw some posts about that today. Let's take a look at that. I know it says market price 2,000, but 2,200, 2,300. Lowest list 2,500. Let's check eBay. Might have to do 130 point. Evolving Skies booster box. First of all, let's just see what the lowest list is. Buy it now. Lowest list. And we need to filter this because we know it can't be lower than 1,000, I don't think. 36 packs. Okay, so there is a $2,000 box, but it's from someone with 0 feedback, and they're in Canada. So let's find the first one that is like a real person. Okay, 2,200. 2,200 seems to be the floor. So I was wrong. They are not 2,500 yet. Let's see if I can find recent sold comps on it. Yeah, I don't trust any of those. Okay, here's one, 2,000. Okay, so maybe it hasn't moved like I thought it was. I thought I was seeing people saying that it was like pushing to 2,500. I'm following that Ghastly PSA 10 auctions. I missed out on one that went for like 160, ending at a weird time. Yeah, if you can find ones ending at weird times, that's a good opportunity. I also have found success with it sounds dumb, but auctions ending in non-US countries. So like one I called out recently was Slab Sharks in Canada. They just recently, let me see, like I can go to my watch list. Look at the ones that ended. I don't know how to do it on PC. They had a Lugia recently. A Lugia. I'm watching a lot of the rainbows. They had a rainbow Lugia end at like 30% below market. It was pretty wild. I don't know how to search ones that have ended on PC. On mobile, they make it really easy. Actually, I could just search for it. It was an Espeon GX rainbow. I don't know what card number it is. 152. So 245 is the lowest list. Let's see what it sold for. 212 plus 10 shipping. So it's not really that big of a discount on it. After shipping, it's kind of market. But I do know that there are some that go for cheap. Oh, status. His status hit sold. Sorry. Yeah, I thought for some reason it was different for the watch list. I don't know why I can't speak. But yeah, is there anything you guys want me to take a look at? Otherwise, I don't have like much else. I'm kind of just rambling and scrambling. If there's any cards or sets you guys want me to take a look at, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, we'll take a look at a couple more, and then we'll probably call it early, give everyone their Thursday night back. What was the other one I was gonna look at? Let's see how Celebrations is doing. Celebrations has been popping off. Celebrations, we have ETBs at 230 in ETB. Where are the singles on this one? Mew at 34, Pikachu at 460. Okay, so these haven't really moved much. Charizard almost 100. I think these are more or less the same. The Celebration's pumped recently, but hasn't. Where's the Greninja? I feel like that one's probably dipped. Greninja, it's probably just Star, right? Wait. I don't know which one it is. Probably like a $20 card, right? Oh my god, it's down to 12 bucks. Holy, wait. Holy hell. Look at that. 14 all the way up to 30. Back down to 12. That is what you like to call a classic pump and dump, my friends. Anyone who bought at this price just got shafted on the way down. Jesus. Oh my god. $1 card a year ago. People bought it at 30x and then it went back down to 12. Whenever I feel like I grab a card for a deal on eBay, I remember taxes. Yeah. I mean, the one thing is if you have a business account or a reseller's permit, which I do, luckily, you can get sales tax exemptions on eBay. So it actually becomes pretty nice once you find deals on eBay because you don't pay sales tax. So, like for me, I live in Washington. Sales tax is like 10%, which is like one of the highest, I believe, in the United States. And so, if you're buying a card for $500 and sales tax would be 10%, you pay $50 in taxes. Saving that 10% is huge. Granted, there is shipping, but a lot of people just have $4 or $5 shipping on there. So I pretty much consider that at comps if you're paying sales tax or not paying sales tax on that. A while back you said MetaZoo samples were the move. Do you still think they're the move? No, I do not still think they're the move. MetaZoo samples were the move until like mid to late 2023, I believe, when I got out. I mean, even before that, they were already dropping. So no, I don't think they're the move. Thoughts on grading clean vintage? Picked up some minty base / neo, but with PSA's high standards for vintage TEDs, feel like CGC or tag might be a play for profit. Curious on your thoughts. Thanks. Yeah, so I am someone who doesn't have too much experience grading vintage. I have graded a couple. Let me see if I can find my orders actually. Let me unshare real quick. I haven't graded too much vintage myself, but I would agree that with the turnaround times and with the standards, it's probably becoming a little bit more difficult to want to grade vintage with PSA, especially when you look at their old certs. I know we talked about that, Will, but their old certs compared to their new certs, it's very, very obvious that the standards are much more difficult in today's world than back then. Whereas with CGC and tag, there's some inconsistencies for sure, but it feels a little bit more doable and digestible than PSA at the moment. I can't find the order actually. Let's see. My thing is that I know people who I think I brought him up before, and I hope he's okay with me shouting him out just because he has such an insane collection. But Wise Whalmer on Instagram, I think would be the person to ask for CGC. He is someone who gets a ridiculous amount. He has so many EX era CGC 10s. I know Will, you're probably talking about like WotC era. But he has e-readers. Here, I'm going to remove your comment just so you can see. He has e-readers. He has EX era 9s and 10s. Granted, he's not showing the 8s in a lot of cases, but I mean, even like very niche cards, he's getting 10s. You could what I would do maybe, Will, is, like, go to his profile and check the certs on some of these. Look at the back conditions especially and centering and see if these are kind of comparable to what you're submitting. I don't know how he does it, but he gets access to, like, almost pack fresh cards. Either he's pulled them himself or he has connects that, he pays strong for probably. But he is very successful at grading vintage with CGC. Granted, you're not going to get top dollar for it compared to PSA, but the likelihood of you getting a PSA 10 with vintage nowadays is so difficult that I do think that CGC. I personally would probably go CGC over tag. I do know there are tag collectors for vintage, like the Gold Stars. There's Benjamin Bay. I don't know if a lot of you guys know him. He's a huge whale, probably one of the most wealthy people I've seen in the hobby. And I found from back when I collected Dragon Ball. I know he collects a lot of tags. So you can see he has a tag 10 Suicune. I don't think he has any pristines yet. No, these are all gem mints. So the Greninja is kind of a meme here, but he has a tag 10 Suicune, Groudon, Gyarados, which is a huge one. That's a huge one. Mewtwo is also a big one, and Jolteon. I believe he's going for all tag 10 gold stars. He also gets lots of Beckett, and I mean, look at this. This is how you know how big of a whale he is. He has 2 golden chocobos. I think he has a third one too. I think he got a CGC 10 chocobo. I don't know if he has it yet. I saw it on his story a while ago. He's also a coin collector. Like, his collection is nuts. He collects like 10 different TCGs and coins and doesn't seem to sell anything, or at least I don't see it ever for sale. So I don't know if that means, I'm not saying to ask him necessarily for tag advice, but all I was getting at is I don't think there's quite as for me personally, I would rather go with CGC than tag, just for resale value and probably long term value. Feels like CGC is a stronger case to be made. All right, let me catch up on chat. It's a good call. He picked up a Deoxys box. Yeah, he's been picking up some big stuff recently. Really helpful. A lot of cards are like PSA 9, 120, CGC 10, 450, PSA 10, 1.5K. Yeah, so there's a big gap. Honestly, there's a lot of PSA 9s that could be the play for vintage as well. Especially new cert PSA 9s. Yeah, you meant to say CGC 10. I gotcha. Too scared grading vintage. I feel like all the ones I've seen at shows will never get 10s. Yeah, there's very few. The only way that you're really going to get any, in my opinion, it's not going to be from vendors. It would be from someone who walks up. If you are vending, it would be from someone who walks up to your booth. So like I don't think I have it on me. There's someone who came up to my booth who like had it's a very undesirable card. It's a raw first edition Dark Weezing from Team Rocket. But it's like near mint, very good condition. I don't think it would grade a 10, but probably an 8 or 9. But I guess my point is I've had people come across my table with binders and collections that I personally don't have the bankroll to buy. I've seen someone with a fully complete near mint EX Deoxys set. He had all the reverse hollows, all the EXs. He had Rayquaza Gold Star, Latios Gold Star, Latios Gold Star. Perfect condition, pretty much. As perfect as you can get with slight warping, but they were all near mint. I had a friend recently who picked up a bunch of near mint vintage as well. But usually it's from when you're on the vendor end and someone's looking to sell their collection, and you just have to have the cash to be able to afford it, which I've never had. But I'm also I'm not as risk on with vintage. Like, there's pros and cons to vintage and modern. Like, everyone has this debate. The pros for vintage is obviously, like, if you know what you're doing, you can make huge gains. And if you have the right connections, you can get the right stuff when you need it. The downside for me is just like we're talking about now, the discrepancy between 9s and 10s, versus, like, the price multiple is, like, too crazy, for me, and I just know Modern a lot better. Granted, the flip side, the downside of Modern is that it can as fast as it can rise, it can fall just as quickly too, and it might not recover in as quick of a time. Um, but yeah. So I came in late. What was the main points you made about transferring PSA 9s to CGC 10s? I mean, more or less what it was is that the conditions on like an example that I have, which is like these two Giratina V stars, I can't even tell the difference. I just got this PSA 9 back. Um, I got shafted by PSA. And so I got 1 8 and then like 10 9s. I had, I believe, Leafeon, Lugia, Glaceon VMAX, Espeon VMAX, Dawn Wings full art that I wanted to grade, 2 Zoroark Hidden Fates GX promos, 2 Charizard V alt arts, Gardenia, right? Yeah, Gardenia's Vigor, and an Umbreon from the Brilliant Stars Trainer Gallery. Those all got 9s. I did get a couple 10s. I got 6 10s, I think. We got an Umbreon V alt art, which is definitely the biggest hit of the sub. 1 Leafeon V10, a Darkrai V Star, a Serena full art, Celebi V, and a Charizard VMAX. I think I've graded like 4 or 5 of those with a 10. Those are like one of the easier ones. But I think I'm going to send a lot of these 9s to CGC to test it out because, I guess, long story short, Connor, their turnaround times right now is about 25 days, it says, for a $17 economy submission. PSA is probably closer to 2 to 3 months for a $20 submission, and their standards are a little bit harsher right now, it feels like. So I'm just kind of willing to take the risk. And then on top of that, PSA 9s are selling for the same, if not cheaper, than raw. So like an example would be the Glaceon V-Star. If I pull up the, let me pull it up real quick. For anyone that saw this already, sorry, just want to, this helps me collect my own thoughts too. So let's see. So we'll use the Glaceon for this example. Show it. The Glaceon is 276 raw, and it was about 260 for PSA 10. And goes for 390 in CGC 10. And the actual like grading percentages, the gem rates are pretty similar. As far as like you're more likely to get a CGC 10 than a CGC 9 and 9.5, and the same goes for getting a PSA 10 and a PSA 9. I think they were overly harsh, so I'm going to try with CGC because there's like no resale value. So if I sold all these 9s right now, I'd probably be losing about $20 a card. Granted, I probably got them for cheaper than they're going for now, but it's I want to do a thought experiment, and also I know a lot of streamers and big content creators. I don't know them personally, but I see them using CGC, and I'm curious why that is. And so I kind of just wanted to look at like what the potential gains are. And so in essence, I took some of the most popular cards from Sword and Shield alt art sets, and on average, you saw about a $133 increase between the PSA 9 to CGC 10, and you saw as a percentage that's about 45%. And I subtracted the $17 grading fee, so it's an average of $115-ish per card. Granted, PSA, you have a higher, historically, you have higher PSA 10 rates than CGC 10s or pristines. That's the other upside, is that you could still get a pristine theoretically. And this is coming, like, this is coming from someone who has been like anti-CGC for the longest time. But I'm looking at just the turnaround times in the market right now, and it's not looking good. And so I'm wondering where I can make plays and potentially get some upside on like what would otherwise be kind of not dead inventory, but like it would feel like a loss if I just sold these for raw price and lost money. And so I want to just see. I know some people that have done this already. Oh, why I can't find CGC. Let's see CGC for Lugia 4 or 500. This card's crossing like 800 in a PSA 10 right now, so there could be plays here for sure. But I did notice that with the V's, it definitely is a lot harder. So that was the other thing I noticed. I hide the columns. The grading percentages, like if you look at a lot of them were Evolving Skies, but if you look at a lot of the V Maxes, I mean, you could take like any of these V Maxes. They're all in those high 60s, mid to high 60s, up to low 70s. But then when I looked at the Vs, you had the Giratina, which is hard to grade. The Lugia is like close to 60, but Umbreon was the hardest. And then a lot of these Vs are kind of in the mid to low 60s for the most part, or mid to low 50s for the most part. So what's interesting about that is for the most part, besides Lugia and Giratina and maybe Dragonite and Umbreon, I guess, as well, the Vs are cheaper than the V Maxes. So it's interesting that the more expensive card is still easier to grade in most cases. Granted, if you don't have the bankroll to buy an Umbreon V Max or a Gengar V Max or even an Espeon Glaceon V Max, which I do think these are more affordable still. I think the Leafeon is the most interesting one just because the prices are so far off. But if you don't have the bankroll for those, you could still do it theoretically with the regular Vs. But I think they're much. It looks like just from the pop reports, it looks like they're harder to grade both at CGC and PSA. So, moral of the story is, if I was going to do it, the V Maxes are probably the most likely to get a CGC 10. They also have the most price upside for the most part, aside from a few cards. CGC has faster turnaround times right now than PSA. PSA has much stricter, in my opinion, grading standards than they've previously had. The downsides for CGC is the liquidity is still low, as far as you're gonna still struggle to sell. If you sent both of these cards in, and they both got a 9, you got a CGC 9 or even a 9.5 versus a PSA 9. The PSA 9 is still going to be more liquid in most cases than the CGC 9 or 9.5. Even if you get a 10 in some cases, it might be more liquid. Granted, it might sell for less, but you might sell slower. So it kind of depends what your goals are. If you need the money soon versus you can hang out for a while. I'm just curious because I feel like it's been shat on for so long, including myself. I'm like someone who's like open to change and yeah, I think there is opportunity out there. CGC seems to be capturing more of the market share when you look at gem rate, for example. Like they are grading, a lot more people are grading with CGC right now, and rightfully so, I guess. So if you look at gem rate, oops, that's gem mint Pokemon. Gem rate. This is a really good resource for anyone who doesn't follow them already. This kind of shows you the trends. So the last one they did was June 2025. PSA, let's see. Where's TCG? So PSA graded last month 911,000 TCG cards. CGC graded almost 400,000, up 138% year over year. PSA is up 114% year over year. So PSA is still growing a lot, but CGC is captured. I mean, if you're looking at just this month, this is like almost 50% of what PSA was doing, which is crazy. Beckett and SGC aren't even like, you can't even consider these to be in the picture at all. Beckett, you have your black labels, which I really would only consider for Japanese to be like a viable option. I thought they posted which one was this? I don't know what 1H24 is. Oh, this might be. Is this a recap for? Okay, so they actually have a market share breakdown right here, which is pretty interesting. So PSA 72% market share for sports, 73% for wait. Oh, total. PSA has 72% market share total. CGC has 17. But when you look at TCG, CGC has 25% market share total. So that's actually pretty good. And then I think it's showing the totals. So PSA is still growing at an insane rate, but CGC is growing at a faster rate, which makes sense, especially now if PSA is charging more. They can't handle the volume. Definitely agree. CGC 10 can be hard to move. Yeah, I've had like this Giratina I've had for a long time, and I've lowered the price many times. Again, I want like to stay within a range that I'm comfortable selling it at, but they are difficult to move. Um, if I were to get a bunch of CGC 10s, I probably would have to send them to. I don't even know if I would consign them because you're going to get eaten alive by the fees. That's another point. So if they're not liquid, you probably have to sell them at shows or trade them at shows. Which why for me it might be a more viable option is because I have an out there if I need to like set up for a show. But selling them online, you're probably going to get 5 or 10% below market, or at least 10-15% probably below PSA 10 market. Um, so it really depends on the card, right? Because if you're only getting $100 and you lose another 10%, which could be 40-50 bucks, it might not be worth it. Granted, if you sent a bunch of these in bulk, it could be worth it. But for some of these cards, like um, the Umbreon's probably still pretty liquid in the CGC 10, I would imagine. You might not get exactly a $400 increase, but even if you got a $250, $300 increase on that between a 9 and a CGC 10, it would be pretty worth it. And CGC won't upcharge you, I believe. So you don't have to worry about the risk of, oh, I'm going to lose $150 to an express sub or an economy sub because they're going to upcharge me. I don't think CGC upcharges. So that is another attractive point of the brand, I guess. But yeah, Gemrate puts out really interesting um, data. So like here they partnered with Gempire Cards to show you like the top, what is it, 30 graded cards of all time. I mean, you could use this as a good indicator of like what to grade in general, but they put out some really good posts. It's very data heavy, so if you're not into that, it might not be for you. But I just like following them because they send out a monthly update once a month. And if you use their site's pretty robust. Like I haven't gone too deep into it. Let me see. Here, that's probably not the best way to look. Gemrate. Their site is pretty robust where like you could look up I mean, they'll show you like look at how TCG stacks up past 7 days. I mean, even if you did prior 30 days, it's like the same. Look at how TCG holds up against every other category. Every other category. It's more than half. Nuts. They show you it in a table format. You can look at the trending players and or Pokemon in this case. Like here you can see trending sets. I mean, it's dominating. It'll show you trending cards. Like the Eevee is the most graded card this week. I mean, you can get so much data from this website. It's nuts. They are like I'm surprised PSA like hasn't bought them out or I guess it's not just PSA. Like they're doing this for like all grading platforms. They're killing it. So definitely check out Gemrate if you haven't already. It would be really cool to do like a partner post with them at some point. But they get some really cool data. So yeah. Um, what else? Anyone got anything else? Otherwise, I'll probably end it soon. Give you guys your night back. But yeah. Wait, I want to see if I can find this this PSA submission I did. Hold on. Need to find my account info here. I don't know why it logged me out. PSA. Okay. Let's see. Oh my god, I put 2FA on it. Hold on. Okay, I think I'm in. Okay. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, I might have sent it. I think I sent it through a friend. Shoot. Well, I'll show you guys my account anyways, just so you can see it. It's kind of cool. I haven't sent that many subs to PSA. These are all like, but for anyone who didn't know, I know Connor, you were asking about the MetaZoo samples. These were like ones where well, actually maybe I shouldn't do that. It shows my address and shit. I could just see the card. But let me. There were some big ones that I graded back then. Of course, I don't have these anymore. Of course, I don't. Would have loved to have this one still because it's freaking like $7 grand or whatever. Yeah, I think I'm just yapping in circles at this point. But yeah. I think that's all for now. Don't see anything else in the chat. Sorry, I'm cutting it a little bit short. I do want to go out and see my girlfriend. She is dog sitting, so want to go check that out. And yeah, we'll be back next Tuesday. We'll have a guest. I'm not entirely sure who it is yet. I have a few people that I'm scheduling with for upcoming shows or upcoming, yeah, podcasts or streams, whatever you want to call it. So we'll have someone next Tuesday. It'll either be, it's usually between 5 to 6 p.m. PST. So tune in then. And then we'll do another solo stream Thursday around the same time. And we'll just keep going hard at it. Yeah, appreciate you all for tuning in. We will see you next week. Feel free to message me on Instagram if you have any other questions. And other than that, we will see you. So, peace. Thanks for tuning in.